Good afternoon and welcome to the State Board of Education meeting for Tuesday, November 8th of 2022. And at this time, we're going to begin with our Pledge of Allegiance. I'll call on Chair-elect Dr. Stapleton to lead us, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, our first item we need to do is approval of the State Board of Education minutes for October 11th of 2022. Is there any objection to approving the minutes as presented? Hearing none, the minutes are approved by unanimous consent. Now, we also have our agenda for today, November the 8th. Is there any objection to approving the agenda as presented? Hearing none, the agenda is approved by unanimous consent. And we have nobody on the list today, so no media, visitors, or others. Welcome to those of you who are here. I think it's mostly staff folks with us today. We're going to hear from in a few minutes. I don't have anything to report today other than for our members, next month's afternoon full board meeting, we're going to have to push it back to 1:30. So that means we'll probably actually have time to have a full lunch break. And because for those watching, we do our committee meetings in the mornings and we have the full meeting in the afternoon. So that will be at 1:30 next month. And so that's also will help Superintendent Spearman. She's got lots of places to go and people want to see her because time's running out.
Oh, yes.
If you haven't voted today, of course, it is election day and your successor, we'll find out who that will be probably tonight.
Hope so.
And yes, it is No Shave November, so that's what this is about, men's health issues and prostate cancer awareness.
Oh.
So my wife has a shiny new razor waiting for December the 1st. She waves it at me every day. So.
Oh, goodness.
Madam Superintendent, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yes, today is Election Day. Encourage everyone, if you haven't already voted, to go and participate. And hopefully we will know tonight who my successor is. And my pledge is that whomever it is, we will do everything possible here at this agency for a smooth transition to help them be set up and ready to go on January the 11th, the day of the inauguration. So looking forward to that, and my staff and directors are already working on transition information to hand over to the superintendent-elect next week. So we're going to be very cooperative and try to set a good example of how transition's supposed to happen. I have one other thing. I'll say that at the end. But this month has been so busy, and time is just flying by. I can't believe it that it's November, and I only have one meeting left with you all in December. But looking forward to that. This past week, I had the chance to go down to make an announcement along with Congressman Clyburn and the regional director of the Environmental Protection Agency. Our staff here, our transportation staff, began months ago with our grant office to work on South Carolina's application for funding for electric school buses. And they did a remarkable job. We began the conversations with the utility providers so that they can be ready with the infrastructure to set up should we be awarded. And we had several phone calls. The EPA was on calls with us, and I could tell that they were impressed at how our agency and the collaboration that we had around our award. And we were not shocked, but we were very grateful that South Carolina did win an extensive grant, $58 million, the third highest in the nation, behind California and New York. Then little old South Carolina. How about that? And I do think our collaboration with the utility industry helped, our support from our congressional delegation, and we're just thrilled about this. We are set, ready to go as soon as that funding arrives. We're ready to order the buses. The utility companies are ready to go to set up the infrastructure. There will be, as you see there, 148 buses will be purchased for 16. Generally, they're rural districts that have been identified by the EPA as eligible. Orangeburg School District they got 6 million for the Orangeburg School District allocated, and so they will be one of the districts that will be set up early on. So we were excited. We had a wonderful event. Special thanks to the Orangeburg district for their hosting the event, and it was just a lot of fun. The best part of it, though, the reporters were there to ask us questions. The best part were the students. And Orangeburg has a magnet school of communication and journalism for elementary students. And the students were wonderful. They were sharper, I would say, than the paid professionals who were there with their questions, and it was just a treat to be questioned. And the congressman was questioned by them as well. So I was very, very proud of how Orangeburg had the focus on them, and they met the occasion. A few weeks prior to that, I went up to Marlboro County and into Dillon County to celebrate with infrastructure funding. This is the funding through the State General Assembly for rural school districts. We awarded $3 million to Marlboro County for some renovation and replacement of equipment there. That's part of the $140 million that was appropriated in this year's budget. We also stopped by Dillon. We had already announced their award, but we needed to stop and celebrate in person with the folks there in Latta and in Dillon, $15 million there for their 2 school districts. So they're building a new elementary school in Dillon where they're consolidating several elementary schools into one. So really good progress being made in the infrastructure in these rural counties. So I'm hoping that the General Assembly will keep that award coming because there's certainly plenty of need across our state. And last week, I had that I had served as president of CCSSO over this last year. A real honor to work with the board of directors and to represent my colleagues from across the country. Several staff members went with us. Dan Rawye was invited to be on a panel to tell about all the innovative work that we have done in our data and research areas through technology and our system. The very few departments are able to get all the data from their districts, that data sharing, which when we came into this building, it was not done. And I think it's been building trust so that the districts would work with us and share data. And so we're one of the few states in the country that has a system where we get all of that information from the districts and far beyond that now with Dan's leadership and Brian Pratt and all of our folks working together. So they were highlighted in a panel. I was really proud of our state. So that was fun. So I'm a has-been now at CCSSO. That's Kirsten Baszler with me there on stage. She is the state superintendent of North Dakota. And she has now taken the reins as president of CCSSO. So slowly but surely, I'm shedding all my responsibilities, but here with you all till January the 11th at 11 a.m. That's all I have to report. But one more thing. That's what was on my mind to say a minute ago. Starting today, our tech staff is recording and also broadcasting, live streaming the committee meetings that you hold in this room. It was not widely televised, broadcast and advertised for today. It was kind of a trial run to make sure it goes okay. I think it did. So for you all who are listening in the future, you will be able to attend virtually the committee meetings that are held in the morning and be able to listen in to all of the discussion. And I think that's particularly important since we do use the consent agenda format. So folks want to hear more discussion, they will be able to do that from home.
Thank you for that, and it is important. The public really needs to see how much work goes on in those committee meetings. We give summaries and such in this meeting, but it's a lot of hard work, a lot of hours in the morning, and a lot of hours of preparation that the committee members put in to those meetings to be able to get the work done. So thank you for getting that, and hopefully the public will avail themselves of using that. Anybody have any questions for the superintendent? Hearing none, we'll look at the parliamentarian, and she's shaking her head no, so we'll just go right on by that. I don't think we had anybody sign up for public comment today either, so we'll get into our state board items. The Policy and Legislative Committee did not meet this month, so I don't have a report to give you for that. The Educator Professions Committee, though, did meet this morning, and so I'll recognize Ms. Lee, the chair of that committee, for her report.
Thank you, Chairman Walters. The Education Professions Committee approved 2 action items this morning. Item 1 is a new Educator Preparation Program Approval Recommendation, College of Charleston Bachelor of Science in Special Education. Item 2 is a new Educator Preparation Program Approval Recommendation, Francis Marion University Master of Arts in Teaching in Special Education. The committee did not hear any information items this morning. The committee placed EP1 and EP2 on the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody have any questions for Ms. Lee? Those items are on the consent agenda, so we don't need to have a motion on that. Next up is the Standards Learning and Accountability Committee. I'm going to recognize Ms. Frierson, and then she's also going to introduce the guests that are here with us.
Thank you, Chairman. Will Dr. Mathis and his group stand and just let folks know who you are? I mean, we had a wonderful presentation this morning as this committee presented with Dr. Mathis and his staff, the South Carolina College and Career Ready English Language Arts First Reading, Ms. Spearman. They were in very much detail with us concerning what this all entailed. We do know that it's an update every 7 years, and we were excited about what we heard from them. There was no information items presented to the Standards Living and Accountability Committee, and with the consent of the committee, it was placed on the consent agenda. I'm not sure if there's anything that we need to add to that.
There is. I actually asked them to come back this afternoon because it's a very important item. It's only something we deal with every 7 years, but there was so much useful information. I felt it would be good for the public to be able to get some of that presentation in this meeting this afternoon. So with that, Dr. Mathis, I'll recognize you, and then you can call on members of your team to lead us through that.
Thank you. As Chairman Walter says, it's every 7 years, and this is the year for ELA to be revised. And as I mentioned in the meeting today, all standards are important, all content is important, but especially ELA because it permeates all of our content. And I've always said we need to learn to read well, and we need to learn to read early well. And with the content standards that we're presenting, I think that will happen. So the group that you saw stand is in Dr. Melton's division, Office of Assessment and Standards. And this will be one of the first times that we will be able to develop an assessment together with as the standards will develop. So it takes that guesswork out of all that. Casey Cook is the team lead for that office and was instrumental in leading the revision of the standards, and she will present to you that information.
Thank you, Dr. Mathis, for that introduction. Chairman Walters, thank you. My name is Casey Cook, and I am honored to be the spokesperson for this process. I'll walk you through a few slides that we shared this morning, and we appreciate the opportunity to come back today and share this afternoon. This is a timeline that just shows the journey of our process. We began in fall of 2020, and here we are today. 2 years later, very excited about what we think is a strong and rigorous product, and we're excited to share that with you and the field. This is a page that is found in the standards document for the English Language Arts standards. It represents the demographics of the Standards Writing Committee for 2022. We're going to zoom in and look at some items closer, but I wanted you to see what the page looks like that's available in the standards document. So at the top of the document, you see that we were intentional to select committee members who are evenly distributed among grade levels. So on the left-hand side, you see the grade levels represented from K2 to high school. And on the right-hand side, you see that we also had intentional representation of gifted and talented expertise, AP and IB expertise, as well as special ed, and English language learner expertise. Here we see the years of experience of the committee members in the 2022 Standards Writing Committee. And we communicated the opportunity to engage in the Standards Writing Committee and release that survey into the field to request participation. And here you see the committee demographics of the districts that engaged with that committee survey link and the districts that they represent. This slide shows representation of the sizes of the districts of the committee members. We're particularly proud of this slide. We think it is a great visual of our Standards Writing Committee and the demographics on the left-hand side. You'll notice how the makeup of our Standards Writing Committee mirrors the demographics of our state. We have the committee on the left and the state right next to that. And on the right-hand side in this graphic is experience with literacy and reading coaching, the administrative staff that were represented on the committee, as well as classroom teacher experience on the committee. There's a lot of information on this slide. I'll just hit a couple of high points, but just so you know, this is showing the driving, guiding recommendations behind the standards writing process. EOC provided recommendations as well as the field and educators in the field. And what you see represented here are the recommendations and the actions that were taken by the committee. Just a couple of high points. It was recommended that we reduce the number of strands from 6. We did that. There are now 4. It was also recommended that we reduce the number of standards. We did that. So we had 41 in 2015. We now have 20 in the 2022 document. We've added foundations of literacy, and we have really paid attention to eliminating repetitive verbs and making the product very concise, vertically articulated, measurable, and cognitively appropriate, developmentally appropriate. And we also made the draft, once it was completed, available to the field in various ways, the State Department website, social media, and other ways and meetings. And we had over 300 responses from the field, and we made that draft available along with a rubric. 7 points for content and rigor, 3 points for clarity and specificity, for a score of 10, 9, to 10 would be strong, 7 to 8 would be good. Anything below 4 was weak. Everything ranked in good and strong from the field. We were very pleased with that. We also took the field's comments and made those comments and revisions and recommendations available to the committee, all of them. We created our own rubric so that we could be efficient. Any comment that came from the field that was not actionable received a score of 1, and that meant, hey, great job. We appreciate the direction we're heading. Great product. 2s were comments and recommendations that needed the standards committee attention. They needed to weigh in and make decisions. If the comment received a 3, that was something that we could take action immediately with, which would be maybe a formatting error or something that we could do in our office immediately. All scores and feedback, again, were made available to the committee. The revisions were drafted, and you see the new draft is what we have available today.
Questions?
Is it expected for us to, because we are being viewed now, to mention some of the things that we may have said this morning? or
That would
not?
definitely be appropriate, and for the public's benefit, most of the board members actually sat in this committee meeting this morning, which is, doesn't always happen. But this is such a serious topic, there was a lot of interest in it, and there was some good discussion, so I think it would be appropriate, Ms. Frierson, if you want to bring up some of those points.
It bears repeating that I was very moved by this committee and the things that you are doing, the back to basics in education with the cursive writing and students needing to have mastered cursive writing by 5th grade, touched my heart immensely. And I mentioned this morning that I saw where you addressed political and social essays, to which I totally agree. In addition, I think it was historical, scientific, and political essays, and I suggested that you would add to the list of essays, college applications essays, because students are really not getting the funding that they could get from across this nation as well as in this state, because they do not have or feel confident with those skills, especially in the rural and disenfranchised or disconnected districts that we have. And also, since I talked to you all, I remember that there was reference to regarding speeches, students being able to orally communicate. And so I would like for you to consider some way, somehow adding mock job interviews, scholarship interviews, college admission interviews, especially for our students, again, who are in these small communities who may not have the opportunity to get jobs like in our larger communities with business and industry. And all of this is moved by what we say we are, who we say we are. We are South Carolina's college and career readiness. That's who we are, and these are our standards. And so if we're going to be college and career ready, we need to get our babies college and career ready. That's my point.
And like manner from earlier this morning, there were some notable pros as compared to questions or concerns. I do think it should be noted that the formatting is incredibly teacher-friendly. The appendices are very helpful. There are checklists that teachers can use. The progression of skills is built into the formatting. Skills seem to be broken down better, and the language isn't as vague as it had been in the past. The thing that I would just encourage, and I felt reassured today, was making sure that as this is rolled out, 2 things happen: bridge documents, blueprints, and support documents for those in the field. Because many times people now who might be even teaching elementary may not be first career teacher. They may have to come through a alternate certification. and the better we can help prepare them with additional supports and additional documents. And then, as I talked with Dr. Melton outside, it's incumbent that we, as a state board, ensure to the best of our ability that we advocate for the full funding of it, because you don't become better in ELA without the materials needed, and that means books and consumables and things that would then be needed. And it's going to take a heavy lift, and it's going to take some money, but the reality is you don't learn to read if you don't have material to read. So I think we have to be mindful of that. Don't forget those districts that may, as we would see, have schools in Palmetto priority, that we roll out the standards with additional support. And I think they've thought through things, because I had a laundry list of things. But I think it is a definite step in the right direction. I just think whereas in looking at where we are going next, to be mindful of the teachers who may be doing that imparting of that love of learning, as well as the need for the resources to make that learning occur.
Anybody else have a question or comment?
I'd just like to thank the group. I know that they've been working for a long time, and I appreciate your dedication to this. It is so obvious that you have listened to the teachers and educators across the state. They've been crying out for fewer, deeper standards, and it's so obvious that you all have done that. I remember, this is one of the few things that I've been here long enough to see, once every 7 years in a term, you don't get to see that, but since I've served 2 terms, I remember when we came into office in 2015, election 2014, January, come into office, we had no standards, remember? We had to very quickly, we took the work of my predecessor that had started just a few months earlier and really turned this thing around in a few months instead of the 2 years that it really needs to be done so deeply. And we rushed and frankly did the best we could with it, and I appreciate the work that was done. But this is a great step in the right direction for fewer standards, and especially now connected with our assessment. And that those, I've always been very concerned that we are assessing, and some of the things we're assessing didn't match up with what the standards were. So I believe that this board and our next state superintendent and all of our teachers, all parents, families, everyone, students are going to benefit from the work that you've done. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Superintendent Spearman. Thank you, Board.
Thank you for coming back this afternoon. It was a great presentation. It had to be great if you wanted to hear it twice, right?
It was our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and Ms. Frierson, I believe you stated earlier that the first reading of this was put on the consent agenda.
Yes, sir.
So that means in January, I believe it'll be back for a second reading, and the full board would vote on it at that time. So the next item of business is Ms. Chapman and her lengthy meeting this morning with educator licensure cases.
Yes, thank you. The committee took action this morning on 22 cases that resulted in 1 approval of initial certification, 20 suspensions, and 1 public reprimand.
And I want to thank the Office of Legal Counsel. They've been shorthanded, and they're still working these cases, getting them to us. And as you all know, in the last few months, it's unfortunate that we have twice as many cases to deal with, but they're trying to stay ahead of them as they come in so that we don't get behind and these matters can get resolved in a timely fashion. So I want to recognize and thank you for that as well. The full board educator licensure committee met. After that, we ratified the cases that Ms. Chapman referred to, and then we had only 1 case for our consideration, and that resulted in an order of dismissal, which is not something I guess we hear a lot of, but that case was dismissed by the full board. So we will move on to our next item, and that is nomination committee time. So I'll be going out the door with you here shortly, at least from this chair. And so the The State Board of Education Rules of Governance Policy, BBAA, is the method of election for officers. So in accordance with that rule, I had to appoint a nominating committee of not more than 3 board members. It has to be done at the November board meeting in front of the group here. And so they will come back and present next month the candidate who will become chair-elect when our current chair-elect, Dr. Stapleton, moves over into this seat. So you'll get your title shortened next month, and we'll put somebody else over there. So I have asked Ms. Chapman to chair the committee, and then she has been joined by Dr. Woodall and Ms. Frierson on there. So they are now formally appointed, and they'll begin their work, and they will bring us a name, hopefully next month. And that will be at the December 13th meeting when that will take place. Next item is the consent agenda. As we've discussed, it's been distributed. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no, and the motion carries. We'll now get to our reports. We have an item for approval. This is a second reading. A proposed amendment to Regulation 43234, defined program for grades 9 through 12. Ms. Riddle.
Mr. Chairman, board members, good to be back here again. I'll be very brief. This is the second reading for the proposed amendment to Regulation 43234. The proposed amendment adds a 1/2 credit in financial literacy as a requirement for earning a South Carolina high school diploma, reduces the required credits for electives from 7.0 to 6.5, and allows a 1 credit personal finance course to satisfy the 1/2 credit for financial literacy. And this will take effect of the freshman class of 23-24.
Okay. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Are we going to be flexible with the kinds of certificates that we'll be able to teach that class?
I'm gonna let Dr. Mathis answer that.
Dr. Woodall, that's probably the number one question we get. Because scheduling a half a unit in a high school without anything to balance it is very difficult. Our state superintendent is chair of CCSSO, so I reached out to CCSO. They say the gold standard of personal finance is the state of Virginia. So we had a conversation with them. They've been doing this since 2009. And that was their thought too, to be as, not to put any barriers when it comes to certification. So here's what we're considering, and we will work through. We have a stakeholder committee that's going to work through this as we develop the standards. But we're looking at the business teachers these are our considerations, nothing final yet. These are considerations. The business teachers who are already teaching the business course, that would count. The economics teachers or social studies teachers who are teaching economics. We would consider math teachers. Feel like if you know math, you could probably teach financial or personal finance. However, superintendents have reminded us that math teachers are hard to come by. They can't give up a period of math to teach personal finance. So Virginia also used teachers of consumer economics because of setting up home budgets. They also, Superintendent Spearman, used ag ed teachers because of the entrepreneurship. And so we're considering that. In talking to the WEPEC superintendents a couple of weeks ago, and the superintendents last week, there is very much interest and wanting us to consider, and I've talked to Mary Hipp's office about an endorsement. So if you're a certified teacher, and go through the endorsement process, you're probably pretty passionate about personal finance. And so we would need to work out what that process would be, whether it would be some kind of certification, like a Dave Ramsey certification, or a coursework, or micro-credentials. But the stakeholder committee that we have, that actually is the personal finance, I think, financial literacy board that works with Superintendent Spearman, those stakeholders in business and industry are advising us on what that could be. So to answer your question, we want as much flexibility with the certification, with the courses that can be offered, so that it is meaningful for students and without any barriers, so.
Thank you for that research, because nobody would question the need for the course. But with the shortage, that's much friendlier rolling out to the districts.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, this is a second reading, so I don't think I need a motion here. It's just a vote. All those in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. And second reading is approved. Our information items, we're going to start off with Chair-elect Dr. Stapleton talking to us about our calendar of meetings for next year.
Thank you. Each of you have with you today the list of the 2023 committee and full state Board of Education meeting dates for the new year. And so the South Carolina Board of Education recognizes that the outcome of the elections today will provide the state with a new superintendent who will be sworn in, as Superintendent Spearman stated, on Tuesday, January 11th, 2023. As such, the January meeting on your list is delayed to the third Tuesday of January, making it January 17th, 2023, so that she may attend. We look forward to welcoming our new superintendent at that time. So that's why you will see a change in our normal date, which is normally the second Tuesday. Please also note that the State Board of Education will not meet during the month of July. However, depending on any legislative and/or educational issues that may arise around that time, we may need to meet in July, and we would do that as a special called meeting. Also of note, there are no holidays on the second Tuesday this coming year in 2023 to have to contend with. Your attendance is optional at the South Carolina State Read-In at the State Capitol and at the South Carolina Teacher of the Year Banquet, although those are both listed on those meeting dates that we seek approval for. Or just information for,
It's
actually. We're just
information.
sharing it as information.
Anybody have any
Any-
questions? All right, thank you very much. Dr. Mathis, you're up again for our literacy update.
Chairman Walters, we're talking about personal finance. I just got a notification on my phone that the $2 billion ticket was sold. It wasn't mine, so,
Oh, no.
you know.
Where was it?
If it was, you
It
wouldn't be
was sold
giving
in
us
California.
Yeah,
Yeah.
California.
I told them earlier that if I just laid my keys on my desk, I won the lottery, but I'm back. So it was sold, I understand, in California, so. You were in California
I was.
last week, so.
I was.
There you go. As you heard earlier, the presentation on the ELA standards, and just something I want you to keep in mind as we roll out the ELA standards and we look at the content standards overall. The social studies content standards, the new standards were assessed this year. You will have science that will be implemented and assessed next year, followed by the ELA standards in the year after that. And then you will be getting the new math standards for the implementation of those the year beyond that. So the next 4 years are going to be very important as we implement new standards. And it's never, just keep in mind, implementing new things and new standards and new assessments can be a struggle. And I feel for those elementary teachers who teach all subjects, we've got to make sure what we do, we implement, but we've got to implement well. That's the key thing. And implementation of standards, as Ms. Frierson said earlier, and the importance of that, the key to it is how well you implement them. So the focus of the literacy update today is how we take the standards and then move to that implementation and making sure that those standards are not just written as numbers and in the classroom and labeled, that they are taught deeply and they're implemented well. And one way to do that is through what we call multi-tiered system of support, MTSS. And so the literacy update today is going to focus on that implementation of the multi-tiered system of support, which is in state legislation, is Act 213. Act 213 was originally known, if you remember, back in 2019, 2018, back then it was called the Dyslexia Bill. And it began to address the identification of support for students who had potential literacy disorders, including dyslexia, but other things. The General Assembly then expanded that legislation to meet the federal requirements of MTSS, the multi-tiered system of support. So a deeper and broader look at that implementation. So at the end of the day, I tell people MTSS is just good instruction. It's how we should really address the needs of our students. It's a framework that matches data to the academic and behavior assessment needs, and then the resources that go with that. Dr. O'Shields mentioned earlier about the materials and resources that were needed. So it takes the academic information, the behavior information, and the resources that we have to meet every student's needs. This tiered system of support relies on data to inform this framework and inform educators to make sure that every student receives quality, well-implemented Tier 1, Core 1 instruction. Every student needs to make a year's worth of progress. And that has got to be quality. It's got to be effective. Followed by those students who are behind, who may need additional support, are going to get tiered supports to meet their academic needs. But it's done with the right focus, and it's done with a lot of intensity. I've used the, quit saying fidelity, because it is fidelity, but it's really intentionality. It's got to be focused and intense and intentional in what we do. So the focus of MTSS in Act 213, the department was responsible for developing a framework and then providing that support out to the districts. What was done first, and I think what most folks really think about MTSS, and you've heard of the universal screeners, but it's really more than that. It included the creation of universal screening that would focus on the academic needs of students in reading, math, writing, and those who may be experiencing some behavior difficulties. So how that translated was that districts are required to screen all students for potential literacy difficulties 3 times a year in grades kindergarten through 1st grade. And then for those students who are in 2nd grade who are still showing difficulty, they're required to screen for those students. Even though there's a focus on that literacy and those early grades for MTSS, the legislation is 4K through 12th grade. It is a system-wide implementation and legislation. In 2019, the department included a lot of offices throughout the agency, across the agency to develop the framework, and it focused on 6 areas: leadership, building capacity among our teachers, communication, collaboration, data-based problem solving, tiered instruction, and then evaluating your data. And so one of the key parts of MTSS is that self-assessment for every district and school to self-assess where they are in implementing the tiered system of support. And keep in mind that tiered system, the strength of it relies on that quality, intentional, focused, quality Tier 1 instruction, and then making sure the students who are behind in grade level, that they get exactly what they need in the next two tiers of instruction. It's not a cookie cutter approach to instruction. It is meeting the students where they are and providing that instruction. And so resources we knew were important to do this, and so there was a lot of things going on with MTSS, and so we had our research lab serve to catalog all of our resources, and it was really more than we really knew that we had. And so out of that cataloging of our resources, we have a dyslexia handbook that districts have access to. If you haven't seen that, we can give you copies of it or links to it. Again, it's good instruction of how to teach literacy. And then we have modules, on-demand modules. We have 6 of those that give overviews and then in-depth of how to implement MTSS. There are virtual modules that districts can use in their districts to really help teachers understand MTSS. And we also created face-to-face and as well as virtual training for teachers and districts. And also during that time, we realized that there was more remote and because this was in the heart of COVID and how you instruct and offer instruction remotely or virtually. And so that became a part of what we did. One of the most positive resources we have is because this is often thought of as an elementary, early childhood legislation, it's not. It's for all grades. We develop resources for secondary schools of how to do this. And that's where we're seeing some of our best results because it is that tiered support as those students who are in 9th through 12th grade and need that intense tiered instruction to catch up for where they may be behind before they graduate, it's really serving them well. So taken from our standards that you heard today to how you really take those standards and put the instruction with it that goes deep and is meaningful for students. So that's MTSS. And we'll provide you more of the information than you could want possibly on that. If you have any questions, we'll provide you all of our resources. We have a website that goes with that as well that we can connect you to. I'll be glad to entertain any questions or comments.
Questions?
Dr. Mathis, if I may, Mr. Chair, while you're at the podium, and since Dr. O'Shields mentioned instructional materials, you talked about resources, would you just give us an update on the instructional hub and the LORE, as we're calling it, and let the board know that we, I think you already know this, but we allocated funding from our ESSER funding, our federal COVID funding, to help build this instructional hub that will be available to all, that is available now to all teachers. Could you just give a
Sure.
2-minute update
So
on where we are with that?
we're moving ahead with the instruction hub, and the purpose of the hub is to provide all educators, all children in our state with the most appropriate resources, regardless of their ability to purchase materials. We have loaded that with materials that we've purchased through ESSER money, Discovery Education, Dreambox Learning, Math Nation. Those resources are there. But we're on the cusp, I think, of something that is really going to be powerful in the instruction hub. And we're taking some of our best teachers, and they're creating lessons and unit plans. And I've read a number of those, and they are going to be loaded into the repository that a teacher can go in anywhere he or she is in the state, lift those out. They're going to be well aligned to our standards, to that core instruction for those tiered systems of support, that they can pull those lessons out, modify them, teach them as they are. If you've got, as Dr. O'Shields talked about, first-year teachers coming in and may not be coming the traditional route, you wanted them to see a good lesson plan, they can go in and pull that lesson plan out and see an example. So I think this is one of those things that we often use the word game changer as, you know, overuse it, but I think this will be a game changer. Once a teacher sees it's one place to go and get all those resources. We're to the point we probably need to bring on a few more people to really manage all the resources that we're going to put in there, but especially I've been impressed with the quality of lessons that these teachers are out there they're writing.
Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you, Dr. Mathis. And now it's time for Ms. Mack and our Allendale and Williamsburg updates.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am pleased to be here to share with you some updates on Allendale County School District and Williamsburg County School District. On October 12th, Allendale County School District hosted a school board community meeting. They had parent-teacher conferences on October the 20th, and they held a volunteer orientation session on October 19th. In Williamsburg, Hemingway community meetings were held on October 25th and October 27th, where the district received feedback and input by the community. Williamsburg County School District high school students will begin taking courses offered by the Continuum in Lake City and Francis Marion University, and this is in addition to the partnership the district has with Williamsburg Technical College. And the Flexible Academy will begin to serve overage students in grades 6 through 12. This concludes my report.
Questions for Ms. Mack?
I'll just add, thank you, Ms. Mack, and I appreciate all the work that you do as a connector and supporter down in both of those school districts. Elections are being held in both Williamsburg and Allendale for vacancies on the school board. So we're watching that, and it looks like some very qualified people are running. And as you know, we hope to transfer the authority back as soon as possible to those local communities. If all goes well today, we hope that will happen, but we're still watching, but working very closely with particularly the Allendale Board to make that transfer happen, and also with Williamsburg, but watching very closely how the election goes today. Thank you.
And that's not anything that expires with your term.
No.
If you're not satisfied with that, it can
That's right.
carry over.
That's exactly right. So we'll make the decision that's in the best interest of the students there.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you for that. Under other business, always a reminder about your travel forms if you haven't turned those in yet. And I think that is the only other business, unless anybody else has anything for the good of the cause. I'd be happy to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And we are adjourned.